Hi, welcome to Actual. These are some of the board games I've been playing lately. Starting with Schöne Scheiße. Apologies to Germans for swearing there. This is actually a renamed version of No Thanks, which is a classic filler card game, and I've just been playing this version lately. The reason I was interested in it is because it comes with these wonderful bigger cards that have these funny illustrations on, basically like bad things that can happen that you wouldn't want to happen. So this one is of a guy that sat on the toilet and there's no toilet paper on the roll. This is of someone who has stood up from a bench and then the bench was painted and now their back is covered in paint. This one is quite dark, of like a guy who has been hooked by a fisherman, like his hook is stuck on the top of his head. Anyway, so that was what appealed to me about this version of the game. But No Thanks, the way it works is that a card is flipped over from the deck and everyone has a bunch of these plastic tokens, little chips, and you don't want cards in the game because cards are negative points. So you will be putting tokens on the card to not take it. Eventually, if everyone just kept putting tokens on, someone would have to take it because you run out of tokens to say no thanks. But it's good to occasionally take them because these tokens allow you to say no to future cards. So it's about trying to find the balance between taking cards that give you those tokens, which then give you options, because the cards will vary in number from 3 to 30-ish something, and you don't want higher numbers. The other cool thing about the game is that if a card comes up that is adjacent to one of the numbers you've already taken, let's say you have number 25, number 24 comes up. If you get that card, then basically you only then have 24 minus points. You don't add them together. It sort of, it rounds down to the lowest number that's adjacent. And so you're looking out for those cards that you really want, hoping that they might come up, but they might not even be in the deck. And then can you send the card round, get a few extra chips on it, because nobody else wants that 24. Then you get chips and the card that you need anyway. So it's such a simple idea. It's one of my favorite filler games of all time. So I would highly recommend this. And if I had made a top 10 filler games, this would absolutely be in it. That is No Thanks, or in this case, Schöne Scheiße. Next up is Home Alone, the game. This one came out of Gen Con, and this is based on the famous Macaulay Culkin film that I love. Is a classic Christmas film. And I don't know if you can see, but it has this amazing artwork. Everything's in the style of a Christmas jumper. So everything in the whole game, such as this board, is made to look like it's been knitted. And it just looks incredible. It's a really clever way to do it. The game is quite simple. It's mostly a two-player game, although one side there can be a couple more players that play cooperatively. One person is playing on their own as Kevin. Kevin has a bunch of loot in his house, so things like a stereo and some earrings. And every round they're going to have 3 of these and then put them in different spots of their house. And then the burglars, that's the other faction, are going to decide which part of the house to go through, and they've got cards that are helping them deal with the challenges that Kevin's going to put down, because Kevin is going to be placing traps and everything. There's a lot of references to the film in this game, which is certainly with the first few times you play it is really kind of nice and reminds you of all of that. It's definitely been made with love, this game. So you've got like a hot door, the hot doorknob, or an iron tied to a rope. There's also this paint bucket symbol at the top of some of the cards, which rolls a dice. Kevin rolls a dice and the other faction might lose cards. And so these cards are face down and the burglars are having to decide, where do they think they've hidden the loot? Will it be behind the location with all of the traps laid down, or will it be behind an easy one and he's bluffing you? The burglars ultimately have to try and get 2,000 in loot, a bit more if you're playing with more players. And they've got a few special action cards, but it's a really nice game of sort of a bit of bluffing, a bit of hand management, and there's definitely, for the burglar's point of view, you've got to really conserve your energy, because if you play all those cards trying to get cards early on, you won't have anything later and the game will end. and you won't ever get to that 2000. I found the game slightly harder for the burglars. And it has a bit of a feel of Android Netrunner because you've got these traps. It's a much simpler version. And so I like that aspect of it. Long term, I'm not sure it's going to stick around for me just because I've got so many other great two-player card games. But I think the theme comes through really nicely. If you love the film, if you want, I think you could play it with kids as well. Yeah, I think it's definitely sort of a fun, well-designed game. I'm just not sure it's up there with other great two-player card games. That is Home Alone. Then we've got Micropolis. This is from Bruno Cathala and Charles Chevalier, and this is a game about building the best ant colony. So there's a bunch of these tiles that are laid out, and on your turn, you're going to pick one. You're either going to take the one that's at the end of the line for free, or you're going to pick one further up the line by paying one of your ant soldiers. So these are like a currency to allow you to buy things. And what you're doing is, so you're going to start off with just this centerpiece and add to your ant colony every time you take one, and everything connects up. So you're building these routes. And there's a number of different ways to score points. You get points for every ant in your colony, so tiles with lots of ants on are great. The queen wants to be connected to these big galleries with basically these big tunnels. So if you can do that, that's great. There's also fruit on the tile, and this game has really nice illustrations. Particularly the fruit, I think, look amazing in this game. And if you can collect a set of different fruit, that's going to get you loads of points, but they have to be in the same tunnel. And it's very hard to keep all those tunnels connected because there's a lot of tiles that will close them off. You get points if you've got the most soldiers at the end of the game, so you don't want to use too many of them. There's barracks where you can put your soldiers. So really, it's definitely a gateway game. It reminds me of something like Sushi Go, where there's plenty to think about, different ways to get points, but it's super simple to teach to people, great artwork. I could really recommend this game for families. For me, it's a case of I sort of got loads of gateway games, and I couldn't even say necessarily a particular thing about this that I don't like. I've enjoyed every play of this game. I think that the way it scores points is really interesting, and it definitely is challenging and thinky. Maybe it's just the theme, but really I think it's just having other gateway games that I prefer. I tend to like gateway games with a bit more bite to them, maybe with a bit of attacking or slightly more interaction than this game offers, just because I think that gets everyone talking at the table, and this one doesn't quite have that. But amazing artwork and a really cool design as well. So if you like the theme, if you're looking for another game that's a bit like Sushi Go level, then Micropolis is a great one. Bonanza. This is a classic card game, much like No Thanks in the sense that it's classic. This is a trading game where you are collecting beans and planting them. You've got some fields and you are planting these bean cards, and you're basically trying to collect sets of the same type of bean. And then as they grow and grow and grow, you can cash them in. Different beans are worth different amounts depending on how many cards you get, but the beans that are worth more for less cards are much more scarce in the deck. And the great thing about the game is it's a trading game. So every turn, you'll be flipping over cards from the deck that you can trade with the other players, or you can keep them for yourself. But of course, the other players might have the cards that you really want to plant in your field. The other real crucial thing here is that you will have cards in your hand, and you cannot change the order of your hand. So at the start of your turn, you have to plant one of the cards in your hand, and it has to be this one. So in the other people's turns, you want to be trading so you can get the cards out of your hand that you don't want. Otherwise, if you've only got 2 fields and they've already got beans in, and you've got a new type of bean, you're going to have to get rid of those beans and start again. So you might lose cards that you were building up or cash in much earlier than you wanted to. So there's plenty to think about, but what I love about this game is that trading gets you conversing at the table. You're trying to get good deals because it doesn't have to just be 1 for 1. You can trade some like really cheap beans for a really good one. You know what people want. You also know that they want to stick to the beans they have, because otherwise, if they're going to have to take those cards that are in the middle, they're going to have to clear out one of their stacks. So sometimes you'll be a bit mean and not trade with them just so that happens. And yeah, so I was just playing this one last night even and having a blast with it. It's such a simple game. It's been around for years and I would highly recommend it. The only thing I don't love about it is just that the art isn't that appealing. But This is a much smaller box than it used to come in, and but I think that's because it only plays up to 5 players. But great, I mean, like if all games this good came in a box this size, then game collections just, well, I don't know what I'm even saying, but it's great to have a game that good in a box that small. Finally, we have the big score, which is not in a small box and it's actually got a lot of stuff in this box. It definitely warrants the big box. This is a theme of trying to do heists. You're criminals, playing competitively, you're trying to make the most money, and it plays over 2 phases. So the first phase is where you're trying to recruit your crew, and you're doing that by drafting cards. So there's a bunch of different cards that represent, they're basically colors really, but you've got a conman, driver, gunman, and you will be picking one, passing it round, and taking the next deck and picking them. And the reason you're doing that is because there are these jobs in the center of the table, and these are things that you're trying to aim for. You're trying to complete these jobs to get the payout. So this one will get me 50,000, this one will get 100,000. And what happens is everyone that's in this job, if it succeeds, gets that. So you only have to put 1 card in. But if it fails, you have to pay money, basically, I guess, to pay off the police. So you're drafting the cards, looking at these jobs, and then you're assigning your crew that you collected 2 jobs. So you've got a bunch of these tokens that represent your character, and you're putting them on top of different piles so that other people don't know what you're assigned to. So there's this interesting thing of not knowing which job to go with. And then you go through and reveal, and for each job you see whether it succeeded. So you could just put 1 card in, get a payout, or you could put loads in and then nobody else joins you and you don't complete it. Often you'll find that some players will go all in on one, but then that's kind of a waste of cards. What I found with the game was that I just wanted more conversation there, because you're drafting effectively in silent because you don't want to give away what you're picking. Then you're assigning in silent and you don't want to give away which jobs you're assigning to. There isn't much interaction there, and there isn't a whole lot to go off. You kind of know what other people are going for. Maybe if they're trying to collect diamonds, you know that they will go on the job with diamonds, so you could throw a card in there and you'll get the payout too. But it sometimes just felt a bit of luck in terms of where you went for. The second phase of the game is where you do this big bank heist. You're sort of doing it together, but what it is there's this structure in the game and you're pulling tokens out of the bank, and it's a push your luck game, really. So you're pulling out tokens and you might get a police token. There's a track, and the more police tokens that come out, the game will sort of end at the point where the police arrive. So you have to decide at what point do you run home with all the stuff that you've collected, because if you get caught by the police, you lose everything that you got in the second phase. So I love push your luck games. I think that phase works nicely. Of course, there's still a lot of luck involved with it, and people can really make out like a bandit, whereas other people were scared because the police were just about to come, and then they didn't come for 3 rounds, they escaped, and then they just got way less than everyone else. And there's also some real luck to it, because what you draw out, you can get 200,000 from there, and you can get more of the things that you need, or you can just get a paltry sum of money. And there isn't much to really mitigate that. It's a game of an experience in that respect, and the push your luck phase definitely delivers on that excitement, and you kind of laughing, and you're experiencing together and the stress of it, and whether people have got out at the same time, because you reveal whether you stayed in or you went out. It's just that the first half of that game doesn't really deliver on that experience, and the thing as a whole is a massive box, lots of things, and fairly long game, and it wasn't quite at the experience I would want from that length, from that box size. Nice ideas in there, not a terrible game by any stretch. I can totally understand why people would like it. It just didn't quite hit the spot for me. That is the big score. Those are the board games that I've been playing lately. If you like this and you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. I'm John Purkis. Thanks for watching.